You're listening to MANX Radio, and I'm Judith Lay, welcoming you to the podcast of the MANX Sky at Night with Howard Parkin.
The nation station, MANX Radio.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
And without a moment to spare, let's fade down the music and fade in Mr. Howard Parkin. Howard, Pastor Mai, good evening and welcome.
Pastor Mai, it's great to be here again.
So, what have you been up to?
Well, there's lots going on, as ever. There's always lots going on. And I've just come back from a trip, actually, when I showed people lots and lots of stargazing where I was. And we've had some really good things to see in the sky recently. And for those who are interested, I mean, we had a lovely night tonight when I drove up, but it's clouded over, I think, ever since I got here. But for those who go outside stargazing any time in the next few weeks, really, you'll notice that all the stars of winter, the ones I keep talking about, all the stars of winter are slowly now setting in the west. They're not readily visible. Of course, we haven't got much hours of darkness. Twilight is upon us, and it's only going dark about this time of night, really. It was still almost daylight when I drove along tonight. So we don't get much hours of darkness. But what we've got in the western sky, Jupiter is disappearing now. Jupiter is rapidly disappearing into the western twilight. Venus is gone. Venus has now moved over into the morning sky. More of that later. But we've still got Mars lagging behind, if you like. And what is fascinating, over the last few weeks I've been looking at Mars, because Mars is Mars takes 2 years to go around the sun. And as a result, it moves a lot quicker than Jupiter, which takes 12 years to go around the sun. But what is fascinating is because Mars is just above two stars, the two stars of the twins, Castor and Pollux, in the stars of Gemini, the twins. And only a few nights ago, literally, these two stars had Mars to the left of them. Now Mars is above them and rapidly heading in an easterly direction. It's racing across the sky backwards, if you like, away from the sun, and it won't actually go between the Earth and the sun until next January. Whereas Jupiter and Mars were very close to each other only about a month ago. Jupiter's actually going to go between the Earth and go around the back of the sun, in June. So Mars is really whipping across the solar system. It's going through Gemini at the moment. It's then going to go through the constellation of Cancer, the Crab. It's then going to go through Leo, then through into Virgo, and then into Libra. It's going to go for 5 or 6 constellations in just about 7 months as it races across backwards. Now, the reason I say all this, and without boring people, is this is what made the ancient astronomers realise that the planets were wandering. And they did wander across the sky, and they couldn't work out why. We now know that what happens to Mars, it goes backwards. All the planets go backwards, what we call retrograde motion, and then they go forwards again. And it's that action of going forwards and backwards that caused all the problem way back in the 17th century. And we can see that for ourselves. All you've got to do is look for Mars one night, and you can't miss it because it's distinctively red. The two stars of Gemini below to the right of it. Then look the next night, you'll see the Mars has whipped fair distance from it consequently. And it just makes you realise how the ancient observers knew all this and worked all this out way back before telescopes and everything was in round. And it just fascinates me how they knew all this all those years ago.
I know, Howard, we have said this before, but it is mind-boggling that they could make all these calculations and work things out with nothing to help them.
Nothing but a piece of paper in a hand and naked eye observations. Yes, we got the telescope in 1610, but until then, it was all, I won't say guesswork, but they couldn't work it out. And then, of course, when along came Copernicus and Kepler and Newton, all these people, and they were able to work it out. But even then, the instrumentation they didn't have, now and I can tell you with precision exactly where Mars will be and everything else. But it's been fascinating to see Mars and Jupiter literally part company. One's gone into the sunset, or the twilight sky, whereas Mars is whipping backwards as if to say, you're not catching me, and it won't be till January the 9th that Mars actually goes round the back of the sun. And then, of course, we have the problems then for the spacecraft, because, of course, when you're communicating with spacecraft on Mars and the sun's in the way, it does play havoc with communications. So they'll have a breather, all the scientists will have a breather. When it gets to a certain distance from the sun, they'll stop communicating, put them into hibernation mode, and then they'll wait till it goes around the sun and then start again the other side.
I've got a Mars question for you, Howard.
Go on.
Now, this might not be a very sensible question, but it is something that is puzzling me.
Go on.
Our friend Luke Jerram, the artist who has
yes.
created
He did the moon and the
moon,
Gaia and the...
and he's already created Mars. It is well known that he produces these artworks from images that have been taken from space, thousands of images that he's taken and collated. Now, I've been looking at the pictures of Mars,
Right.
In particular when it was on display installed in Rochester Cathedral,
Right.
a great space for it. Now, this is what puzzles me. The way these installations work is that you've got the object, in this case Mars, and then there is a lightscape that goes around it with, and in the case of the moon, it was all greys and silvers and that kind of lightscape. The one for Mars has a lot of red in it, so
That's
the
right.
cathedral floor has a lot of red. But Mars itself is a sort of flesh colour.
No, it's when you get close up and you get spacecraft images of it, it's just like all the stars in the sky look the same colour, but when you really look into it, the different colours. Well, Mars is distinctively red, or pinkish if you like, to the naked eye. But when you get up close to Mars with spacecraft and all that sort of stuff, it's a lot redder. It's because the surface is literally covered in ferrous oxide. It's rusty, for want of a better word, and it's that red rusty appearance that gives Mars this distinctively red colour, which matches to red supergiant stars like Antares in Scorpio, which is known as Antares, rival to Mars. Ares is the god of war, Ares, and Mars is the god of war. So you get this distinctive red colour, which is caused by the surface conditions on Mars, which are rusty red.
So, but presumably more visible from certain angles, stronger in certain angles.
Well, if you're orbiting it in a spacecraft, which is where Luke Jerram will have got all his images from, they'll all be NASA images, because NASA have got this spacecraft in orbit around Mars.
Oh yes, they are. He says that they are NASA
and
images.
they've got now the ability to get all these wonderful pictures, and that's what he's building his globes on. And fantastic to see. And Cathedral, as we saw with the moon only a few weeks ago, months ago now, the moon in Peel Cathedral was breathtaking. And most of these sculptures, for want of a better word, and we've had the Earth, we had Gaia in St Thomas's earlier last year, we've got the moon we've just had the moon, and other places like you've just mentioned, Rochester. I know St Albans had the moon just before us, where my son lives, and they're just fantastic to see. And now the resolution on these images is just breathtaking.
And so the teaching that can be got from those is vast, isn't it? As well as stimulating imagination, the teaching from it for young people.
Oh yeah,
is.
And
yeah.
I would hope that we'll get more of them in the future, because they're great to see. And as you say, there's so much we can talk about. I must just tell you once, I might have mentioned this already, but I walked into the cathedral when the moon was there a few months ago, and the guy quicker said to me, he's one of the vicars there actually, one of the clergy. He said, "Are you here for the talk?" And I said, "No, I'm actually here to see my night school class. I'm talking to them about the moon." "Oh, you're giving the talk. Are you Harold?" I said, "No, I'm Howard." "Oh, Howard," he said, "would you mind putting a microphone and telling everybody else?" So I did an impromptu 20-minute talk about the moon. So not just my dozen night school class people there, but all the members of the public were there as well. Because with a laser, that's the one thing I thought with the moon was great. Well, I did it. If you have a laser, one of these laser pointers, it doesn't have to be a powerful one. The ones people use for the cats or whatever, and use them to point out the salient features. It was very, very good, and I think a lot of people got a lot of fun out of it, and the educational value as well.
You never know when you're called upon to give an impromptu talk, do
No,
you,
I
Howard?
don't. You're quite right on that one, Judith.
Let's move around the sky. What else should we be talking about?
Well, because we've got the winter constellations setting in the west, you think to yourself, well, that's it now, they've gone. And okay, it is spring and the lights are lighter. But we have got three very bright stars in the sky. We've got the star Arcturus, which is very easy to find by finding the handle of the plough. You find the handle of the plough and just follow that line down, that arc shape. You'll come to a very bright star in the sky called Arcturus. Follow that line further on, you'll come to a star called Spica. And between them, but up a bit, you've got the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo the Lion. So those three make up our real bright, prominent spring stars we see at this time of the year. They'll be followed in a few months' time by another three stars of what we call the Summer Triangle. And what is fascinating to do, and people say to me, how do you know what star is which? Well, the best way to identify stars is when the sky is not quite dark enough, and you can only really recognise the bright stars then. Once you get all the stars on a dark location, such as the Isle of Man, when you get a dark location and all the stars are visible, you can't tell them apart. It's very difficult, even for us who do this a lot. It's difficult to pinpoint the real bright stars, especially if there's no moon around. At the moment there's a new moon, I think due in the next few days, literally. And when you've got no moon in the sky can be breathtakingly clear. Not as good this time of the year, because this time of the year there's a lot of we've got too much light because the dusk and the dawn are closer together, but also the heat. And I've just been away, and the heat where we were, the sky was so hazy with the heat haze and everything else that it wasn't very good indeed. And we never saw the Milky Way once, I'm afraid, even though we had clear skies, because it was just too hazy.
Yeah. I wouldn't think that a heat haze would affect. I think it would make lovely conditions for sitting out in the deck chair, as you say.
Well, that's what we did, and we enjoyed every minute of that. But unfortunately, the trouble is you get, especially when you're on the sea, is you get a lot of humidity in the atmosphere, and that water vapour makes it very hazy. But still enough to see, and the bright principal stars we could recognise and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, yes, us astronomers love cold, crisp, frosty nights, but not particularly pleasant to be outside in. Much nicer to be sitting on a deck chair somewhere with a drink in your hand, looking up at the sky thinking, I wonder what that one is.
That's not stargazing, Howard. That's just relaxing.
Well, okay, but it makes people wonder why. What's that one and what's that one? And I said all the time, you don't have to know what the stars are. You just need to wonder about them and marvel at them. When you consider how far away they are and all the other stuff about them, it's just another aspect of astronomy that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, of course it is. Now, you said that you were going to talk some more about Venus on the move, now moving to the morning skies.
No, well, Venus, like Mars, Venus moves even quicker than Mars, but because it never strays far from the sun, because it's between the Earth and the sun, it was visible. In fact, I had a conversation with someone only a few weeks ago and said, I've seen this bright star above the horizon now. It's always there, but it's disappeared. Venus was visible for months. It was visible from, I think, something like August last year in the evening sky over Peel. Quite unmistakable, very, very bright, very, very easy to see. Well, eventually it went between the Earth and the Sun, went through what we call inferior conjunction to give it its proper name in March, and it's now re-emerged in the morning sky, and it's very easy to spot in the morning sky. If you get up before the sun comes up and look for Venus, it's at its brightest, I think, at the end of May, only in a few weeks' time. And then it slowly will get higher and higher and higher, and then it will drop down again, go around the back of the sun, the sun this time, and then re-emerge in our evening sky. I think that's going to be from about November onwards. I'm not sure the date exactly, but it does swap around, and it takes us back to this positions of the planets and how the ancients had to work all these things out, and they just couldn't work it out. So they gave the planets the name wanderers, and the Greek word for wanderer is planet. That's where it comes from.
When you mentioned that a few moments ago, it just made me think straight away of that lovely, lovely song. It's very popular in the lounge on a Sunday night, from Paint Your Wagon, I Was Born Under a Wandering Star.
Absolutely. We should play that one sometimes, Judy.
A lovely, it's a lovely romantic idea, isn't it?
It is.
This idea of born under a wandering star.
Well, the wandering stars are, of course, the planets.
There are some people who are just born wanderers, aren't they? They find it difficult to put roots down anywhere. And I suppose back in the day they would associate themselves with the stars that moved erratically through the sky.
Someone's just given me a name of a book I'm going to get from about the sailing from Hawaii to Australia. The ancients in their wooden boats and using the stars to navigate themselves. Because you can navigate by the stars. It's not easy to do, but when you think you've no other means of doing it, that's what you'd learn to do.
Of course they did. Yes, you're not planning to do anything like that.
No, definitely not. I'm afraid my idea of cruising is entirely different. More abject luxury than sitting in a boat.
You're not in a little boat navigating by
definitely not for me,
with
Judith.
Mrs. Parkin and with a bit of a parchment scroll helping you to work things out.
I think I'll suggest that to her, but I suspect I know what her response might be.
Right, let's move swiftly on and talk about Lyrid meteor showers.
Yes, we have actually got a meteor shower. The first decent shower of the year. We don't count the quadrantids in January because it's straight after Christmas, but the Lyrid meteor shower peaks on the 22nd, 23rd of April, which is of course Tuesday/Wednesday. So I'm not sure what the weather forecast is. But if we get clear skies on Tuesday, Wednesday, take yourselves outside around 11 o'clock midnight time. Look towards the eastern horizon, towards the constellation of Lyra, which you don't have to know where Lyra is in the constellation of Lyra. Just look towards the eastern horizon and look for any meteors you might see. If you can see them, they will be meteors from the Comet Halley, which comes around every 76 years. And these meteors tend to be quite fast ones, and they leave a train for literally a fraction of a second. When I say a train, a trail. Hence the expression shooting stars. Now, I'm always talking about shooting stars because we do have lots of different meteor showers. We have the Lyrids, we have the Perseids, the Geminis, and so on. On our monthly chat, I always mention which one's coming up, but this one's only literally going to take place in about 2 or 3 days' time. So Tuesday, Wednesday, if the sky's clear, get yourselves out there and see what you see.
Now, you did also mention to us, Howard, that after we were all saying how wonderful the aurora was, that there could be other opportunities.
There was indeed. There was one last week, Judith. On the 15th, there was a massive coronal mass ejection on the sun where material is thrown out the sun, intercepted with the Earth's atmosphere, and causes the aurora. And quite a few people, I wasn't here, but quite a few people told me they'd seen the aurora and saw images of it. And that was not as good as, we're still looking for the real good peaks we had last year, one in May, one in October. We're still hoping for another one of them. And I still think it might come, but to my knowledge, there's been at least 3 decent displays of aurora since January. The one just on the 1st of January, there's one in the middle of February, I think it was, and this one only a few days ago. But it's usually very short-lived. You're only going to get it for 2 or 3 days, so you really need to watch the media. And usually, even on the television, they will tell you if there's any mass ejections or any auroral activity. Again, just take yourselves out, look at the northern horizon. It needs to be dark, so unfortunately it needs to be midnight time now. It's not like we can see it at 8 o'clock in the evening like we could earlier. You need to be around midnight for looking for it. But anywhere with a decent northern horizon, if there's any aurora around, just look for, and you know the biggest clue I say with aurora, if you look at the aurora and you think, is it aurora, is it clouds, can you see the stars through the clouds? If you can see the stars through the clouds, it's aurora. If you can't see the stars, it's clouds.
It's very simple, isn't it?
It's not rocket science, but it works every time.
There, we don't want rocket science. We just want a quick tip on deciding whether or not it's an aurora.
And the other big tip I'll give you is get your iPhone out. Other phones are available. Get your phone out and just put it onto photo mode and take a picture. Normally your phone will automatically adjust to the light and give you a 3-second exposure. It doesn't matter, you're not worried about it being handheld, steady. But if you see a green glow on the screen of your phone, then there's aurora around.
Yeah, that was exactly how when I saw it the first time, because I just thought the sky looked really, really strange. And so I just put my phone on it, took a picture, and was amazed at the result.
There you go.
And the rest is it. But that was the one where everybody was saying a similar thing. But we learned
tips
a
for
lot.
aurora spotting.
We learned a lot. So keep looking.
Keep looking. You never know what you're going to see.
Keep looking. Right. Okay. I would have said that brought it up nicely to a music break. Would you agree?
I
Howard?
would agree. And part of just one of the things to let you know that if you want to know where Venus is, the moon is going to be very close to it. Sorry, not the moon. Saturn and Venus are very close to each other on the 28th of April in the morning sky. So if you want to see Saturn, which is unfortunately its rings edge onto us at the moment, so not particularly prominent, but well worth looking out for. And we've also got Jupiter and the moon close to each other on the 30th of April. So there's always the moon gives us, as the moon wanders around the Earth, is it orbit around the Earth, let's be precise. It does drift from one planet to the next all the time, and you can use that as a great pointer.
And we'll head out into space right after Simon and Garfunkel.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share. No one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fool, said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words, like silent raindrops, fell and echoed the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls, the tenement halls, whispered sounds of silence.
You are listening to this month's edition of the MANX Sky at Night with Howard Parkin, and that was a very fine music choice, Howard, Simon and Garfunkel, and The Sound of Silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. That was what it's for.
Right, let's go into space now, and you've got at least 3 big stories for us. So, Howard, Starship 9.
Yeah. The Elon Musk's SpaceX, who have launched 8 of their Starships so far. You may remember this is the one where they catch it. They catch the rocket when it comes down, and
with the chopsticks.
With the chopsticks, yeah. And they're going to try another launch, number 9. Now, the last 2, they've got a huge problem with the second stage of the rocket. There's huge vibrations, and the last 2 actually broke up and were destroyed. So they hope they've fixed that now. There's a big debate at the moment of whether they're going to bother trying to catch the bottom half again like they do normally, but I think they're more concentrating on making the first stage work. But you know what is incredible, Judith? Number 5 Starship launch was where they caught the first stage. They've caught it 3 times now. So the Starship that is being launched, number 9, is using the first stage from number 5. Even at this stage of the experimental program and everything else, they've made sure it's perfectly serviceable, perfectly usable. I think of the 32 engines, they've got 27 are original. They've put 5 new engines in it, and they're going to use that to launch it. It was meant to be, the official designation was NET, which is no earlier than today, Sunday the 20th of April. But it didn't go, obviously. I would have heard about it. But they now reckon it's imminent, next couple of weeks probably. So we'll watch out and see what they do with that, because Elon Musk has now actually said, love him or hate him, his space exploits are really something else. And they've actually said they want to launch a Starship to Mars, unmanned, a Starship to Mars by the end of 2026, which is one of his ultimate goals. So who knows, the Mars globe in a cathedral or somewhere, and you could have a spaceship landing or getting close to it as early as end of 2026. So watch this space, as I always say. Well,
without wishing to make a pun, but it is flying along the programme.
Yeah.
Things that you would once talk about taking 5 or 10 years
Indeed.
even in the planning. It is just...
We're up to, they only launched the first one, I think, in late 2023. We're now at halfway through 25 almost. So in 2 years, he's done 9 launches, or will have done 9 launches. And there's probably at least another 3 or 4 to come this year. So moving at a great pace. And
compared
of course,
to the way it used to be.
And the other thing is, of course, the top half of this rocket, the Starship itself, the actual the rocket that's going to be used to carry people, that is one of the ways by which the United States are going to get back to the moon on the Artemis program. And the first one of the Artemis program landers is meant to be using a Starship. So NASA are very keen that this Starship gets off the pad and gets launched and everything else. So a lot of pressure on, and just in the wings, you've got the Chinese threatening, or not threatening, but the Chinese wanting to send a Chinese mission to the moon in the very near future. So we have almost another space race, another space war, if you like, between China and the United States, each trying to vie with the other to get there first or get back there.
And moving along at the speed of sound so that we don't completely get beaten by the clock, biosignature of life.
Yeah.
Now, what's that about?
This is a
Howard?
huge story. This is an absolutely huge story. This is some observations by the James Webb Space Telescope, which is looking for exoplanets. Now, exoplanets, for those who aren't familiar with them, an exoplanet is a planet orbiting a star other than the Sun. The first ones of these were only discovered back in 1994. They've now discovered just under 6,000 planets around other stars. We now believe that planetary formation is common in the universe, or in our galaxy, which is where we're looking. And we believe that planets are not accidental. They are a natural evolution of a star. It forms planets as well. The material that makes the star, other material forms planets. What they're doing, they're finding these planets. Some of them are very, very big, because obviously they're easy to find if they're much bigger, but we're starting to find planets now that exist within what we call the continual habitable zone of a star, which is the place where water can exist as a liquid on the surface. It's called the Goldilocks zone, which is not often that scientists get imaginative, but the Goldilocks zone is where it's just right. It's not too hot like Venus, not too cold like Mars, but just right where the Earth is. And all stars have this zone. Now, some stars don't last very long, so life couldn't evolve, or planets wouldn't evolve very well. But if you get a smallish star, the size of our sun, which is classed as a smallish star, this continual habitable zone might have a planet in it. And the reason I say all this is because we have now got the ability, using the James Webb, to detect that planet and look at its atmosphere. Look at the spectra they get from the telescope's instrumentation. They can measure what materials are in the upper atmosphere. And they've just discovered this particular planet, XO 827 or something like that. It's not got a name or anything yet. But they've discovered traces of elements that are 99.9% ever only produced by living organisms, which means that there are biosignatures that there could be life on this planet. Now, we're not talking about little green men. We're talking about biology. We're talking about plants. We're talking about photosynthesis, all this sort of stuff. And yes, we're only detecting things that we know brings life. We don't talk about other forms of life. We're talking about what we can detect using our instrumentation. And this is by far the best observation they've made so far. And there is a tiny, tiny fraction that this material could be produced by natural processes like rocks and that sort of stuff. You get things happening through non-biological means, but the amount of material they've found in the upper atmosphere of this planet indicates there's almost certainly some form of life within that planetary system. And it's one of the first indicators we've had of life existing on another world.
You're absolutely right, Howard. It is a big, big topic.
Huge.
And unfortunately, the other big topic, I don't think we're really going to have time to, because we're almost beaten by the clock, but it's our old friend, it's the Hubble telescope and the James Webb telescope, the much newer one. And there's a tension here, isn't there?
There's a conflict. There's a conflict. What BASE are doing, sure, we'll maybe talk about something next month, but just to whet the appetite of listeners, is the James Webb the James Webb telescope is meant to be doing something that the Hubble is doing, the Hubble Space Telescope is doing, which is measuring the rate of expansion of the universe. And they hoped that the James Webb would confirm what the Hubble telescope had discovered. No, there's a huge difference. In terms of astrophysics, there's a huge difference. The measurements they're getting are not the same. They're measuring the same thing. It's like measuring the speed of a car coming towards you or going away from you, or using a radar or using something else. They're measuring the same thing using different methods, and the answers are not the same. They're dramatically different. And they've also able to do the same thing with some earthbound instruments, and they've got another error. And they're causing this a Hubble tension, because it's creating a tension, if you like, of what the beliefs are and what's causing it. And it's actually threatening to completely rewrite some of the rule books of physics, because they're saying the universe is not acting like it should do. There's something we don't understand. And whilst we're happy that the universe evolved at the time of the Big Bang and has been expanding out ever since, and it's continuing to expand, they can't measure the rate of expansion and agree it. So it's a huge topic, and it's causing a lot of tension, I think, hence the expression Hubble tension.
Well, two things here. First of all, I know it'll be a subject we'll come back to in a future programme, but also it just underlines what we say so often. The more you know, the more you realise you don't know. Howard Parkin, always a joy to talk to you, Howard. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We look forward to welcoming you back into the studio on the final Sunday in the month of May. In the meantime, Howard Parkin, Fastermeyer.
Thank you very much indeed.
The Nation Station.